Good morning, everybody. Sorry, we're just running a few minutes late. Bear with us. Just downloading some slideshows that just got sent to me at 11:58. Sorry, 10:58. It's all right. Yeah, I hope no one's in a rush. We're here till 1. Actually, we're here till 5. So chill out, talk amongst yourselves. If anyone wants coffee, people ask me for coffee. There's a cafe next door. I don't know if there's any coffee down at the forecourt, but got a photographer over here filming some stuff as well. shout out to Motown Barbers, Luke Koya in the house, just rocked up. You're late, brother. But that's okay, because so are we. I know them all already. I've just chucked them in the folder. And...
Are they? Yeah, you know.
Is it illegal?
That's the last one. That's the last one.
What's the last one?
Oh, they didn't make it down. Appreciate yours.
Is it live? morning all. Apologies for the lateness. But welcome to the Christchurch Art Gallery and our Day 7 for our Hip Hop Summit. I'm just going to go over some house rules. My name is Tommy. It's a privilege to be here to have you guys here and have our guest speakers we have throughout the day. Welcome to the Philip Carter Family Auditorium at Te Puna or Waiwhitu Christchurch Art Gallery. In case of emergency, please follow the instructions of gallery staff or respond to the building's automated instructions. I think if they've got these little flash things that go off and direct you, go here and there. If an earthquake occurs, drop, cover and hold until the shaking stops. Exit points are through both auditorium doors and the foyer entry, so where you guys came in. The gallery's assembly point is on the corner of Gloucester and Montreal Streets. And if you want to go to the toilet, you'll find these through the main entry doors and down the corridor to the left. And the galleries are available for questions. Or I'm here around those little orange tags that will be able to cool. Nice intimate crowd. This is also live streamed via Facebook and YouTube, I think. All right. As I said, welcome everybody to the Christchurch Hip Hop Summit Day 7. It's been quite an intense 7 days, but I'm really looking forward to this day, having everyone here. We've got food trucks outside, we've got a few stalls, but in the auditorium, we've got our keynote speakers, who I will introduce. So first up, we've got 3 keynote speakers talking about the urban hair art, hip-hop stories, and their journeys through everything. I do want to welcome to the stage our first guest speaker, been around for many years. He's got one hell of a story that we're excited to hear, and it's my privilege to announce to the stage a good friend of mine, good friend of ours, Matt Brown.
Malo lava le soifua, tēnā koutou katoa, talofa lava. Massive ngā mihi and whawhitai lava to the YCD Ainga for putting this on. Always grateful for your work. Still remember as a snotty-nosed kid living out in the west side, busing to the first hip-hop summit 20 years ago, 20-something years ago, 22 years ago. So always grateful. Thank you, Tommy, also, Infrared, Danny Earl, the whole YCD camp for putting this on. Yeah, honored to be here. So yeah, a little bit about myself. A lot ingo o Mateo Whawhitai Mali Toa Brown. Obviously, growing up in Ototahi, not many teachers could pronounce my name, so Matt Brown stuck in this city. I'm married to my best friend, my wife Sarah Brown. I have 3 beautiful children, Oceana, Angelo, and Frida, and I'm a barber by trade. So I suppose I want to start this talanoa, this kōrero, by sharing a story, a letter that I wrote to a dear friend of mine, which is the heart of everything that I do, of the kaupapa that we started here in Ototahi. So yeah, I want to put a disclaimer out there. There will be some tough stuff that I touch on and talk about. So you are more than welcome here to leave. I won't take offense if it's uncomfortable, but yeah. And if you're at home streaming in, turn off your phone, don't listen to me. But yeah, this letter goes like this. A letter to my brother. When you told me that you wish you could tell me everything, but you couldn't possibly because it would test even the limits of my love, my heart was still my brother. So still, so quiet. You said, bro, if I told you, you'd walk away just like everyone else. But if only you knew, Oos, that when I think of why I even barber at all, I think of you. If only you knew that it's the shame you push down their whispers in your ear telling you I'll leave if I knew. Because if the truth whispered, It would tell you nothing you could ever tell me would change my mind about you, because I see you. And when I see you, I don't see the gangster. I see a little boy sleeping on the bed springs because your father deemed you unworthy to sleep on a mattress. I've always seen him. So when I cut your hair, I'm cutting that little boy's hair, and with every snip, I'm telling him he's worthy. You are worthy, little one. Snip, snip. You are worthy of your honor. Snip, snip. You are worthy to be known. Snip, snip. You are worthy to be loved. You epitomize the reason I do this at all. When I come into the barbershop and when you come into the barbershop and sit in my chair, I feel you exhale. I exhale too. And you are no longer in my barber chair. You are lying on those bed springs in a dark room, and I'm sitting on the end of your bed with you. I see your tears, but I don't hear them. I'm honored to hear your tears. Sometimes they just need a witness. So I'll sit there in the dark with you as long as it takes, until you have the courage to push them out. I can smell the urine. I know it was just your way of protecting yourself, little one. I'm sorry you had to stay like that all night. I'm here now, and we'll clean it up together. I promise. I'll sit up with you here all night just so you know I'm not going anywhere. It will always be because of men like you, with little boys inside of you, longing to be seen, that I consider the sacred work to be the honor of my life. To cut your hair and see you beyond what the world sees, while it's a perspective that atua, that love must have of each of us. So I'll continue to be my father's barber. I thank you humbly for this gift, my uso. I thank you for letting me see you. I thank you for trusting me with your pain. I thank you for allowing me to sit with you in all of it. I promise I'll tell your story, and in time I will. See, here's a story of a man who walked into my little garden tin shed in the hood in Aranui, who my neighborhood deemed him the worst, who my neighborhood said, who questioned my integrity and said, why are you cutting this man's hair? You know the stuff he puts out on the streets is destroying our whānau, it's destroying our ainga. And I was at conflict because I chose a career to serve. You see, to cut hair was to serve. To cut hair was an honor and a privilege to the men who came and gave me the vulnerability with trusting me with the outer appearance. And here was a man that I soon learnt, who was introduced to crime at the age of 5. Mom, I'm hungry. Mom, I'm starving. Boy, jump in the car, took him down to the closest dairy, and there he robbed his food for his tummy. A man who was too much for his father to handle, so his father dropped him off at a boys' home. And then he was raised in the system, and with every foster parent who looked after him, abused him, sexually and physically. And he tells me of a story of a time when one caregiver couldn't handle him, so he stripped him naked, hung him upside down on the clothing line, and made all the boys in the house piss on him while they spun him around. And then we wonder why people perpetrate violence in our communities. We wonder why Aotearoa has the highest statistics when it comes to family violence. Yet people just judge. There goes another Māori, there goes another Pacific person in jail. But we don't ask the question, what's happened to them? What's happened to them? And so this has been the great honor of my life, being a barber, having these conversations with the men who have sat in my chair, who come from the hood. Because I've learned as a barber, stories of pain and shame do not discriminate. It doesn't matter what background you have. I've had the privilege of cutting men who wear suits, to gang patches, covered in tattoos. And yet we all are more alike than we are different. And so on this journey of barbering, I suppose I became known throughout Aotearoa from doing hair art. You see, as a brown kid growing up in Otautahi, there weren't many people that looked like us. unless you're watching the All Blacks. You know, and for some of us, you know, our rugby club, our community hub wasn't the sports club, it was KFC. So for me, sports wasn't my thing, but what resonated with me the most was hip hop. Hip hop was my saving grace, to see and listen to stories of men, brown colored skin, black colored skin on TV, telling their stories of pain and trauma, but making it look cool and being successful about it. That resonated with me. That gave me a different window to life and hope. And so I attempted to shave a portrait of my favorite, one of my heroes, Tupac Amaru Shakur, on one of my boys. And when I woke up on the next day after putting this up on Facebook over 10 years ago, it went viral. The Tupac official page in America shared it, and it had over 1 million likes and shares. I thought I was the man. But you know, I took my time on this because Tupac gone wrong could have easily ended up being a self-portrait. But I'm glad it didn't. So this was my introduction into barbering. But in all of this, you know, coming from where I was from, where I first started in my little garden tin shed in Aranui, as a brown boy, I thought to myself, you know, I can't compete with the American barbers. I couldn't compete with the barbers overseas from the UK who were amazing at all of this stuff. And so I always asked myself the question, you know, what can I bring to the table? And for me, it was our stories. It was our stories as brown Polynesian people who struggled. So if you told a boy who grew up in Otatahi that one day he would have a barber shop that would be a hub of healing, of conversation, of sacred talanoa, I would have never believed you. If you told that young boy, you know, over 20 years ago that you would travel the world teaching barbering and hair art and connecting with barbers who cut your heroes, I would have never believed you, because that wasn't the window that I had the privilege of looking outside of. And so here's a picture of me when I was 5 and another photo of me 5 years ago. I struggled to look at the photo of me as a 5-year-old because even though I'm smiling, my eyes tell a different story. You know, by the age of 10, I had lived in every woman's refuge home here in Otatahi. Growing up in my household, violence was a normal part of our upbringing. Abuse was a normal part of our upbringing. So to feel love, any slight of joy and laughter was quickly shut down. And so, you know, the infamous movie Once We Warriors, when that came out in Aotearoa, me and my siblings, I was 10 years old watching that on the whala, and we laughed through the entire film. You know, we thought it was a comedy because we would compare Beth Hicke's hidings to my mum's hidings. We would compare Beth Hicke's black eyes to my mum's black eyes, and we would often tell ourselves, man, mum's black eyes are way bigger than Beth's. My dad's way crazier than Jake. You know, I remember a story of my father. Everyone who played rugby league in Christchurch knew my dad, standing on the sideline with his can of beer, usually Foster, his blue can of Foster. And I remember one incident, one of my older brother's games, the referee was making some calls and my dad, you know, as mouthy as he was on the sideline, started running his mouth at the referee, and the referee blew the whistle and said, if you don't get off this field, I'm calling this game off. And my dad, you know, Samoan, Jake the Muss, he's like, okay, I'll get off the field. He walks over to his car, grabs his machete and runs onto the field. And as a young kid watching that, you know, we laughed because that was, again, our childhood, our home environment, now being exposed to the world. Laughing was a survival mechanism. These are my dear brothers whom I love, and that's my father in the middle. People always ask me the question, you know, where are you today with your dad? How's your relationship with your father? And I always say, I forgive my father. I've forgiven my dad. And I forgive my father because it's a daily choice. And I learned to forgive my father not for his sake, but for my sake. Because I'm a massive believer, what you don't transform, you will transmit. And so now, a father myself, you know, one of the biggest healing things for me is walking through the door after a long day of mahi, and my children yelling, Dad, 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 you know, fighting over who's going to get the first hug. That's healing for a boy who doesn't have any inkling memory of having that towards my father. And so I stand here as a man who forgives my father for my sake, because that bitterness, that animosity towards my childhood could easily be transmitted onto my children, my dear tamariki. And so birthed this kaupapa called My Father's Barber. For me, in the hood, when I started, for my original clients who were from here, my barber shop was first called Brown's Barbers. For my name, that's all I was surrounded in the hood in Aranui was brown people, until I had a white client. You know, the white people started visiting the hood for their haircuts, and one guy questions like, do you only cut brown people? That's quite racist. And I was like, no, bro, it's my last name. But it was through the conversations with these guys, you know, brown, white people, these stories, all of us related. And so it was seeing the inner child within these men who sat in my chair. And so for a lot of our men, for a lot of the boys, the tāne who sat in my chair, a lot of us had a strong story of fatherlessness. You know, we were looking for fathers. We were looking for the big brother. We were trying to find it, you know, in different things, in substances and addictions. And so being the father's barber was to also honor my faith of how love views all of us. And so when I share that story of my uso, who grew up in state care, you know, the little child that sits within all of us, longing to be seen and longing to be heard, that was really my job. Was not just to cut hair, but was to sit and hold these conversations with the men who trusted me with their hair, which My Father's Barber was birthed out of. And you know, it's been a dope experience. I've traveled the world. The brother here with the dreads goes by the name of Darren Lyons, our master barber. He was the personal barber to Tupac and Biggie, my heroes. And I remember when I put up that Tupac picture many years ago, he commented on my picture on Instagram, and he just wrote, "I miss my friend." And I was like, you know, as you do, you start being nosy and start clicking on people's profiles. And I jumped on his profile, and I seen this guy had photos up of Pac and Biggie. And I messaged him, I said, you know, I'd love to connect one day. And he said, yeah, bro. He was keen, and so he came over from LA to Aotearoa, and we did a national tour. And it was such an honor and privilege, you know, to hear the stories of my heroes from this man's mouth, who has never given his story to Hollywood, who have approached him so many times to tell his story, his version of Pac and Biggie. And he posed this question to me while we were driving around the country, and he goes, you know, do you view Pac and Biggie as leaders? And I said, of course. Like, you know, if not for their music, I wouldn't know where I would be. And he said he didn't view them as leaders. He's seen them as sheep. And he said this from the most humility. You know, I love them to bits, they're my boys, but I view them as sheep because the leaders are still alive today and they're not. And I sat with that. I sat with that whakaaro, because I was like, how do I become a leader in my own right? How do I lead this generation who are coming up in the industry, wanting and looking up to American barbers, looking up to the American culture, to hip-hop culture? How do we tell our own stories through this craft, through this beautiful craft of barbering? And that's been the challenge always, you know, to be innovative in the space, while telling our stories. And the beautiful thing about hip-hop gave us rhythm to tell our stories. Hip-hop created connection and relationship, but this was always within us. You know, these ancient data and research around Pasifika being orators. We were always storytellers. We just now put rhythm to that. And so, and also Johnny, who is the personal barber to Jay-Z and Pharrell, you know, to sit with these men who are so humble. You know, when I sat in Johnny's barbershop hanging out with him with my wife, his 13-year-old son was there. You know, he should have been in school, and I asked him, bro, why are you at the barbershop? And he said, I just love hanging out with my dad. My dad's my best friend. That, to me, spoke volumes of who Johnny was, his character. And so when you look at celebrities who have these barbers, you know, because barbering is such a sacred space. You know, you're trusting someone to make you look good. And so when I talk to these barbers, the humility, the grace, that is their ahua, their wairua, is beautiful. This is just a photo, again, of barbers that have worked for me at one time. a lot of these barbers are no longer with us. They've gone on and opened up their own shops around the country. Because for me, I always thought, I'm just one person. I only can cut a certain amount of hair. And so our goal was always to teach other barbers how to hold the space, how to have talanoa, how to cut some dope here, but then also how to have conversations, because we have an epidemic on our hands, which is mental health. And then sadly, our mental health system is just not adequate to help all our men who are in pain. And so my father's barbers, I've been honored to teach some of the best barbers in this city, around the country, who have come and learnt more than just cutting hair, but to how to hold conversation. And then came a time when the government came knocking on our door, asking us to collab with us, and I was a bit iffy, wasn't ready to lose all my street cred. But the It's Not Okay campaign, who my wife and I are very grateful for, the Ministry of Social Development, they just wanted to come and awhi tautoko our kaupapa. So there was no box ticking, they just said, what do you guys need? We always had a dream to hold wānanga, to hold a space where barbers could learn and heal. Because for me, I'm always of the thought, who am I to do this work with the men that sit in my chair if I don't do this work with myself first and the men working next to me? And so we created these wānangas called the Barber Hui, where 150 barbers from around the motu came to these wānangas, and it was beautiful. I had two of my brothers in the front seat who attended, and it was life transformational. I remember one wānanga, at the beginning of every wānanga, I share my story quite raw, more raw than what I'm sharing today, but and then we have an activity called the Circle of Courage, where I ask people, and I get all the barbers in a circle, and I ask them a question. Like I'll ask you guys in the room, hands up in here if you've ever felt disappointed. Yep, mainly everyone. If your hand's not up, you're lying or you're shy. So those are the questions, step into the circle, barbers, if you've ever felt disappointed. All the barbers stand in the circle. My next question, step into the circle if you've ever felt heartbroken. Usually the old guys stand in the circle, the young guys are outside. And one of the questions I asked was, step in the circle if you've ever been sexually abused. And this one wānanga, 47 people stood in that circle. Tāne, men, heads down. Look up. Men crying. Men who had never had permission to share their stories were sharing their stories through action, through stepping into the circle. And I share their story because the work that we do today, working with men whom society deems the worst, whom society doesn't believe hope for, or no second chances to men who perpetrate violence. I share their story because underneath it all are little boys who are hurting, who are longing to be seen, who are longing to be loved and nurtured. They just haven't had permission to tell their stories. They haven't had permission or know how to regulate these emotions. And so the pain and that trauma is often transmitted onto our most loved ones, our most vulnerable, which is our women and our children. And yes, I'm not here to stand here and just demonize, I'm not demonizing men at all or making excuses, because we know violence goes both ways. As a barber for over 15 years, I've heard stories of men being abused, men who are struggling to get time with their children. But we can't deny the statistics, the data that shows women dying at the hands of our men. Men are dying at the hands of men. We're dying at the hands of ourselves. Men are at the top of our suicide rates. And so just, for me as a barber, any business owner, and this is a massive call to action that I wanted to any business owner who's watching or viewing this or here in the room, utilize the space that you have for your community. My barber shop's open from Monday to Saturday. Oh no, Sunday to Saturday. No, Tuesday to Saturday. No, Tuesday to Sunday, sorry. Tuesday to Sunday, and on Mondays we were closed, and I thought to myself, well, I'm still paying a lease. What can I do with that space? And so we decided to run therapy sessions, which we were honored to collaborate with Aviva Families, who's a domestic violence organisation here, and Mapumaya, who provided us with free therapists. And so all the tāne who came to these therapy sessions had free access to therapy because, you know, here in Aotearoa, here in Christchurch, to see a counsellor, if you're struggling, to see a counsellor, you're waiting for 3 months. There's a 3-month wait. And for most therapies, you know, most counsellors, you're looking at $100 to $320. One of my boys went and sought after counselling for his relationship, and he got quoted $320. So for most of our tāne, you think to yourself, that's, you know, a whole week's worth of groceries for my kids or my mental health. What do you think most guys are going to choose? Our children, of course. And so our mental health takes a back seat. And so I always encourage us barbers, yes, we're not, you know, clinically on paper approved to be therapists, but we're good listeners and we're much cheaper, you know, and you get a dope haircut. And so these spaces have been cool because, you know, we've had the Mongol mob, the Black Power, the Tribees, the KCs, all sitting together with police, with judges, with lawyers, with doctors in our barber shop, crying together. You know, this is not a popular business plan, whānau. You know, step 1, get a barber shop. Step 2, start crying with your clients. But we're losing our people. And the old harden up, get over it, it's not working. It's not working. Our incarceration rates prove that. You know, Māori take up 40+% of people incarcerated. Pacifica people are 20% incarcerated. So over 60% of our prisons are full of indigenous people. We need spaces where we can talk. And so this kaupapa that was birthed out of the barber shop, called She Is Not Your Rehab, many conversations my wife and I would have on our couch, because we're boring people and that's all we do. This kaupapa was birthed, and people often ask me, you know, who is she? Who is she? And she is my dear mum, my beloved mother, who I lost to cancer 2 years ago. It's her shoulders that we stand on for this kaupapa. This is my lived experience, watching my dear mum, her whole life, be a rehabilitation centre for my father. And I would often ask her as a little kid, holding her hand, lining up at the food banks, holding her hand, sleeping at women's refuge homes, Mom, why do you keep going back to him? And her answer was always simple, son, I don't think I can do this without him. Son, I want you boys to have a father. She sacrificed her sovereignty and her dignity just so we could have our father in our lives. And so I credit to my mum. It's been a beautiful kaupapa. Obviously, it's very triggering for a lot of people. But for me, this is my story. This is my story, and this is how I viewed the world growing up. It's been cool. My wife is an entrepreneur to the T. She came up with this idea of, you know, how do we spread this kaupapa more and normalize this conversation? And she had this idea of writing a letter to the rock, using our son, I'll claim it when he's good. Using our son as the pull-in card, the drawing card for the rock. And so, you know, when she posed this idea to me, I was like, nah, the rock's not going to respond, or he's not going to read this. But the poor guy got tagged on this letter this video letter format that we created on socials. He got tagged in there like 10,000 times. So he was probably like, fuck, I better respond to this kid or else I'm going to look like an idiot. And which he did. It was called Dear Mr. Rock. And I remember it was 2 weeks before Mum passed away. She was on her bed at home. And my mum was always like, my mum's a typical Samoan mum, you know, likes to sweep everything under the carpet and hide, you know, just because of face. We want to show face and not show our community that we're struggling or hurting. And she would always say to me, son, why do you want to always tell the sad stories? Like, tell the happy stories. And I'm like, wait, any stories? And so when she read the book and she gave us permission to write the story, she said, tell it well. And then when Dwayne responded on socials and wrote back to my son, calling him nephew, hey nephew, it's Uncle Rock. So we've got that in writing. I read the letter to my mum just before she passed away, and we just cried. And it was beautiful for my mum to see all that pain, all that mama that she carried for so many years, to be redeemed from simple words of acknowledging, because Dwayne had a similar story of witnessing his mum go through domestic violence. Who is she is also is my wife, who hates this photo, but I like it. She is not my rehab. She's a strong mana wahine from Te Rarawa, Ngāpuhi descent. A woman who refuses to be my rehab. I remember when I asked her to be my girlfriend after 4 years of friendship, due to me having trust issues, her words to me were, "I love you and I'm here to support you, but you need to check your ass into therapy." And I did. I did because I loved this woman and I didn't want to see her with anyone else. And so I checked my ass into therapy, and I swear to God, that therapist, that counselor, probably did a therapy after we were finished. But it was beautiful. That was my barber chair of sharing and telling my story. And so I honor my wife. This kaupapa is also her. She refuses to be my rehab, but she's my home. She's my home, and for any tāne who goes to work, works hard for their whānau, you want to come home to a safe space, a place where you can just down, breathe, and relax. And so we treat our home as taonga, as tapu, sacred, and that's who my wife is to me. And so we wrote a book. For us, again, healing is inaccessible for a lot of our people. For me, we wanted to write insights and healing tools that has helped us on our journey for men. And so we wanted to write a book because we know that books can move into spaces that we can't, can go into places that we can't. And so when Penguin, our publisher, approached us to do this deal, I was over the moon, like, wow, someone wants to hear my story. But my wife, again, with her entrepreneur hat, posed the question to them, like, we want to get this book into every prison in Aotearoa. And they looked at her like, okay, very ambitious. And they said, how many people are incarcerated? My wife did the homework, found out 9,350 people were incarcerated at that time. And so Penguin came back and gave us a figure. It's going to cost you guys about $100,000, thinking that we weren't going to achieve that. And so my wife went door knocking and asking people, friends and organizations, if they wanted to support this kaupapa. And we did. We raised $100,000. And so by Christmas last year, every person incarcerated got this book. But the highlight has been walking into my barbershop when I'm here and looking at all the letters that men inside prison have sent to us. Men who have written and not really understood what healing looks like. People thinking that healing is just rainbows and butterflies and unicorns. But healing where you're crying, you're grieving the childhood that you dreamed for yourself, the childhood that you wish that you had. Letters from children, from sons and daughters who are writing to us saying, this is the first time my father's ever said I love you after reading your book. This is the longest my father's been out of prison. Making healing accessible to our people. Because I'm a massive believer, Indigenous people, we heal through storytelling. We heal through our stories. And so that's pretty cool. Our latest mission at the moment, again, a collaboration with MSD. We want to make healing accessible for our people. So we created this new kaupapa called Inner Boy. And this is to teach men how to regulate their emotions. I'm a massive believer, if we taught in school young kids how to regulate their emotions, how to breathe, we wouldn't have the incarceration rates that we have today. We wouldn't have domestic violence rates that we have today. Making it normal to feel disappointed, not always just lashing out in anger and blaming someone. Making it normal to feel grief and cry, not always telling our young people to harden the F up. So that's not available yet, but I'm just putting it up there. It will be available beginning of next year. And so I want to end my kōrero, my talanoa, with changing the narrative. I stand up here as a brown boy from Ōtautahi, born in Tamaki Makaurau, but lived my whole life here in Ōtautahi from the age of 3, that it is possible to change the narrative. I utilize my barbershop, my business, to do that. You know, for me, again, I didn't want to be like the American barbers, and I'm grateful that I stand on the shoulders of hip hop and learning that culture and taking in and absorbing what I can. But I also, as a brown Pacifica man with my own story, with our own trauma and our own pain, how do we tell our stories? And so I've just utilized the space that I have to change that narrative, that it is possible to be everything that you never received. It's the photo of my reason, my greatest invitation to heal, to do the work. I'm not perfect. I don't stand up here saying that I have it all together. I have fucked up sometimes. I haven't been the best friend sometimes, and I've learnt, and I own that shit. But these are my greatest invitation. Oceana's our oldest girl who's at uni, 19, her second year, doing a fine arts degree. The Rock's nephew, Angelo. And that's the boss of the house, Frida, who's 4. And so, yeah, honoured to be here. Thank you for listening to my kōrero. I will always be grateful to hip-hop for giving us a voice, the culture, black people telling their stories from across the world, giving us permission to tell our stories. You know, growing up in Christchurch, racism was real. You know, it's a different kind of racism when you come down here to the south. For a lot of us brown people, we weren't surprised when the mosque shooting happened here in Christchurch because we lived and breathed racism, discrimination our entire lives, our entire childhoods. Matter of fact, when that happened, Mum opened up to us. Mum opened up to me, sat me down, and it triggered her because when she moved here from South Auckland in the 90s, in 1990, she went down to the supermarket and she was boot-napped by skinheads, by white supremacists, and raped with a baseball bat. And so that trauma and that pain that we have carried in our household, in our whānau, in our family, in our community, grateful to spaces like YCD for giving us kids a space, a creative space to be free. And so I give honour and credit to the founders, to Losa and Vic Tamati, who's an activist, mātua in the field that I work in now, to Annie Watkin, to Fred Williams, who's now leading it, and Danny Ill, Infrared, Tommy, Sean, all of you guys who are holding space for our young kids. Because if not for the space for YCD, like, a lot of us wouldn't be here today. And so forever grateful. Thank you, Hip Hop Summit.
Big love and respect to Matt Brown. Once again, can we please give it up for Matt? I know you're a busy man also, so for you to take time out of your schedule to spend with us here at the Hip Hop Summit, to share your story, thank you. I just want to do a shout out to the people that have made it possible for us to hold this event and the events that we have held over the last 7 days. First of all, I want to give it up for YCD, Youth and Cultural Development. Without their backing and their support, we wouldn't be able to put on these kind of events for all. So big shout out to YCD, big shout out to the Christchurch Art Gallery, to Puna o Waifetu for having us here. As you came through the front doors, you would have seen some food stalls, some clothing stalls. It's just a cool thing for us to get together, and this is actually our last day of the summit, so for us to put on a little market is pretty cool. Thank you, Art Gallery. Thanks to the Christchurch City Council. There's different branches of the council that have helped us put this on, and they've played a massive part of that as well, so big shout out to the City Council. The Pacific Music Awards, Red Rat Clothing, Whanaketanga Barbarians, For the Culture NZ, and the Club Kings. Everyone who has contributed to this event, thank you so much. Our next guest is another legend in Christchurch. She's been around and she's done some great things. But again, I'll let her explain her story. I want to give a big shout out to everyone here, actually, and everyone tuning in at home on the live stream. Thank you for joining us. But I do want to welcome to the stage Ronda Shaskey.
when they told me that I was going to speak after Matt, I was like, for real? But no, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be here. And yeah, thanks to the team at the Hip Hop Summit. I wanted to start with a statement, and that was that I believe everybody here and the next generation can build anything from the ground up. Talofa lava, my name is Ronda Shaskey, and some may know me as Romeo when I tried my hand at graffiti art, and few of you might know me as No Sente when I hit the stage as a young MC. I was born in American Samoa and moved to New Zealand when I was 3 years old. And I grew up in a small town called Blenheim, and we were one of the very few Polynesian families there. I experienced a lot of childhood trauma before the age of 6. Hip-hop music had a message of hope, courage, rising from oppression that helped me through my anger in my teenage years. I moved to Christchurch, Aranui, in 2000, and meeting a hip-hop community there, I saw a community that showed self-expression, motivation, talent, and art, and I was truly inspired. And it was just so great to see other brown faces around me, or people that shared the same common ground as me, and just wanted to create, you know, a voice for themselves, or just even the breakdancing was awesome. You know, I tried that, but yeah, so I stuck to a few other elements instead. I was inspired by the hip-hop aesthetic and was obsessed with Bone Thugs and Harmony. And so I loved braids. Braids was just something I was in awe of. I had a healthy wee clientele here in Christchurch, making a little pocket money through high school. And now I am a proud mother of 3 kids, Tyler, who's 16, and 2 daughters, Mila and Eden, who are 5. They're waving at me. I'm a wife to Jason Shaskey, who is my love, my logic, and my accounts manager. I have been in the hairdressing industry for 18 years, and 12 of those I have owned and directed Inspire Red. Having a business through earthquakes, I've relocated my business, say, about 3 or 4 times. 2 lockdowns and, you know, all the disruptions of a pandemic. But Inspire Red has maintained a healthy growth and built year on year. I look after a team of about 12 stylists, and 5 of those are thriving apprentices. I have had the amazing opportunity to be a part of an artistic team up in Auckland. I've been a style director at New Zealand Fashion Week, and in 2019 I was honoured to receive Stylist of the Year. Although I feel I've got much to learn and still so far to go in my career, I wanted to try and bring something today that could help inspire or create some thought into ideas that you might have that you're sitting on. So today I would like to talk about my 5 key values that has propelled me forward in my career. So I believe that everybody here can build something from the ground up. So my 5 key values are inspiration, vision, inclusivity, growth, and creativity. So I was going to start with inspiration. Hip-hop was definitely one of my biggest inspirations growing up. We didn't really have access to like flash CDs or cassette tapes, so I found myself by the VCR dubbing over my mum's videos, watching TV hits on a Sunday, and I would press record on any hip-hop music or any R&B, And I just loved the aesthetic. I loved the braids. I was just obsessed with just the music, the messages, and that really inspired me to use hair as a medium of creativity. Vision is definitely one. I know, sometimes in business we have our set goals, but I think it's good to think about our lifelong purposes and kind of what we want to be known for when we leave this earth, or what we want our children to talk about with their children and their grandchildren. And so I think for me, when I think about vision, I think about the things that are going to impact the next generation. I think about my children and, goals, setting goals for yourself where you're not able to almost mark them off, but it gives you a way of creating a way of living, a lifestyle, health, and something that my kids can be proud of. Sustainability is a huge one for me. That's both my salons are sustainable salons, and so reducing waste in our community and finding ways to help our community with sustainability is really important to me. Education, so creating opportunities, ways that I can pass on any of my knowledge to anyone that is interested in our industry. I think hairdressing, just like Matt said with barbering, it's just a way that people can come in and you can actually use that space to connect with a lot of the community. I think as hairstylists, we have a very unique position in our community. Just the other day, I got a message that one of my clients had passed away, and I had been doing her hair for like 16 years, and she came to me every 6 weeks for 16 years. And it's weird because I probably know a lot of very intimate things about her. She shared a lot of her stories with me, and she did a lot of amazing work for the City Mission. And I was grateful that her daughter reached out to me and told me she had passed, and I will be able to go to her funeral next week. But I think it's a very unique position to be in when you're a hairstylist, because you're so close, but then you're not, but but you know so much, so yeah. Inclusivity. This value is very dear to me because I believe that being inclusive is something that creates a sense of belonging, a sense of team culture, and I believe that's why a lot of my team are thriving today, because they don't need to be something to fit in. They are who they are, and they come with everything that they are, and they belong. And so in having that value, we create that atmosphere for our clients as well, that they can come in, and it can be a vulnerable time for clients when they sit in the chair and they might have a certain way or style that they want to identify with, or a way of expressing themselves, and knowing that they're in safe hands to create that look and express themselves and walk out feeling better. I believe also that inclusivity was something that I struggled a lot with when I was younger. Growing up in a white community in Blenheim as well, it was really hard to fit in. I did have to use a lot of gel in my hair to try and calm the afro down, or braid it in order to feel like my hair was under control like the others. And there were times I felt like I had to almost be a chameleon in order to fit in. But that was really hard because I think if you've been through a lot of trauma in your life, a lot of these things come up in different ways and show up in ways that you're unaware of. But we do this by creating just a sense of belonging. And I truly think that through the pandemic, a lot of clients came to us for the experience of belonging somewhere, and we were creating that sense of certainty that they were going to get how do I put it? They were going to come in and they were going to receive the same service that they always receive. There's the consistency, and that they were going to be welcomed. Growth. This one is something that will always be a lifelong journey for me. Be open, be willing, talk less, reflect more. Growth is the reason I'm here. This is a growing process for me as well, being the second time I've ever been up on stage. And it's important to challenge yourself and see what happens. Outside eyes is really important for growth. During the first lockdown, I truly freaked out. I was not sure what I was going to do. I had all these wages to pay, we had rent, and so instead of welling in it and things, I actually ended up spending more money. I fired my accountant, got a new one that could actually give me some accounting advice and business advice. I got a business mentor, and she came on board and mentored me through. I'm not afraid to tell people that I don't know something. I'm not afraid to put my hand up and ask that silly question. And I think it's important with growth that we're comfortable with reaching out for help. And I believe that's part of my team culture as well. Even though I lead a team, I lead from the back, and I often ask them the questions. I ask them to give their input, and I honestly believe that a lot of the growth that I have achieved is truly from the people around me and my community, and being open and asking. And therapy should be normalised. That was one thing that I have noticed just in the last few years of hairdressing. When we talk about therapy and actually seeing someone, it was kind of something that almost is a whisper. And I believe that it should be something that's really open, and we should be able to openly talk about it. I'm probably on my 4th session of therapy, and it has been amazing to see what the brain has done. And how trauma, how we respond to things. And it's been an incredible journey, and I'm, definitely looking forward to continuing that. Creativity. This is my favourite. This is where we get to play. This is where our art comes in. This is where we get to express who we are as creators. This is where I tell 2 of my friends to come up, because I thought this morning was a great opportunity to showcase just some of my competition work, and these looks were inspired by my hip-hop aesthetic. So we've got some infinity braids, a few threading, and the infinity braid just at the back of Missy's hair was done with about 5 strands, so I probably needed to grow another 2 fingers to do this, but my friend Claire was there to help with the other 2 strands. Challenging myself with competition work is really important to me. I don't always come out with an award, and it's important to reflect on that, and I actually enjoy the experience of not winning an award and seeing what comes up for me and how I reflect with that. But it's always good to take home something as well. So, thank you, ladies. So, let the mind wander, let the mind be creative, and So the 5 key values that I had was inspiration, vision, inclusivity, growth, and creativity. And I hope that really helps bring a little bit of inspiration to anyone that wants to you know, do something with the ideas they may have been sitting on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ronda, for coming in and speaking on your journey and experiences. It's an awesome thing to see your family here as well. What's up to the family in the back? It's beautiful to see everyone come together. How's everyone feeling? Tough crowd. Once again, I just want to give a big thank you to YCD, Christchurch City Council, for allowing us to put on these things. I probably said the names YCD and City Council probably about 1,007 times this week. But, Janai's here. Janai, put your hand up, Janai. Janai's actually been a massive help, and she's the one that's given us Tūranga Library over the last 6 days to put on these events. So again, without you, Janai, we would be in Bromley Hall, as Red said. So thank you so much. I do want to give a big shout out to all of you again for coming along, and shout out to everybody that's on the live stream tuning in. We do have one more guest for this segment. Quite a hard case, this guy. Supposed to start at 11, but he sends me a slideshow at 10:58. Right, can you load this up? I do want to bring to the stage, once I try to load this up. He just flew in this evening. He just flew in this morning. Another man that's got a busy schedule, so it's a privilege and a pleasure to announce to the stage Mr. Peleti Oli, the Flex Mayor.
Thanks for staying. Does everyone know Lopati and the claps that we do in Samoa? So Lopati. Cool. Do you guys know Tolu Tolu Fa? So, oh no. Cool. Tolu Tolu Fa. Cool. So when I say Lopati Tiger, what sound does a tiger make? Cool. What about Lopati Michael Jackson? Or who's bad? You can say either one. Cool. And then when I say microwave, ting, cool. Sweet. Lopati, so far. Lopati Michael Jackson. Lopati Tiger. Lopati microwave. Cool. Let's go. Okay. O te tūlai, I le awa tele, ma le wha alo alo. Ma le mi ngāo te tauai, e ofa alofa, ma whaata alofa tu yoto paia, ma o tō mamalu. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to give a big shout out to Mauso Tommy Dreamer. Thank you for the last minute alterations. Also shout out to DJ Infrared and Mauso Phil. So thank you for the opportunity also. I am from a place called Flaxmere. Does anyone know where that is? Cool. I was born in Samoa. My family moved to New Zealand, and we went to Auckland first, and we moved straight down to Flaxmere. I don't know why, but we ended up growing up in the orchards, picking apples, all sorts of vegetables as well. So work ethic was instilled in us at a very young age. One fond memory I have was very young. I think I was about 4 years old. Mum would place us into like an apple bin, and she would place us in there, go fill it up with apples and bring it back, and then try and fill that bin up and then move us on to the next bin after that. So When we got a little bit older, we helped mum and dad, make money to pay for the bills. So very grateful to my parents. Here we have my dear grandmother, Whaalangi. What she instilled in me was spirituality. She's now passed away. She had dementia, but I'm very grateful to her because of her spirit, and she would often give me blessings. So I'm grateful for those blessings because it saved me a few times. So grateful to my grandma. Cool. Okay, my slideshow is all over the place, but that's my fault. So I'll run with it. I'll start off with this post. So this post is the beginning of my story. I'm a barber by trade. Yeah, I'm a barber by trade, so I'll read my story out. I was taught how to cut hair at high school, and my good friend John Whiunui, he saw my hair how it is, and he asked if I wanted to have a fade. I didn't know what a fade was. So we went to his house, cooked us a feed, and he started to cut my hair. It was very short, but then I liked it. I caught the bug, and then the next thing he did changed my life. He handed me the clippers and he said, cut my hair now. And to me, what that did was he believed in me, and he was also willing to give me a chance. So I caught the bug and I started cutting all my friends at high school, started cutting all my family. Then it got to a point where I needed to find an opportunity. I wanted to go to the next level and learn more about barbering. So what I did was I knocked on every single street or every single barbershop and hairdresser to look for an opportunity just for someone to give me a chance. And this was my experience. When I was begging for an opportunity, everyone said no. I've been a victim of stereotypes and prejudgment, negative remarks, and racism. As I walked into shops to ask for a chance, they would stare at me with dirty looks, often smirking like I was a piece of shit. There are times where I recall I would walk into a barbershop or hairdressers and they'll kind of like just shoo me off. Nah, don't even bother coming in. But I was determined. All I wanted was help to become a barber. I never had an apprenticeship. I never studied at a barber school. I never had a mentor or a tutor, and YouTube wasn't around back then, so I didn't have access to that. But my good friend, John Whiunui, he put the clippers in my hands, and after he passed away, I had to learn from my mistakes when I was cutting in the garage. Fast forward a few years, I'm now a fully qualified barber thanks to my community or my village or my boys. Shout out to my bro Luke. He's also my chauffeur here in Christchurch. Grateful for people who, like Luke and other barbers who helped me become qualified. So this picture here is credit to my family and also my circle as well. I've managed to accomplish a few things in life through the trade of barbering. And I can honestly say it did change my life. Can I just click on the photo and it'll come up? Cool. Can I just go and click on the photo? Will that work that way? I just got it in. Sorry, guys. Can I just do it that way? Yeah. We'll do it how you did before. We'll move it and I'll just roll to the beginning, how you did it first. If that works. I'll just roll that.
Is it coming up?
No. I'm just going to flip through because it's kind of like out of order. Cool. But bear with me. Cool. So this is my family. There's 10 of us. 5 boys, 5 girls. So yeah, we didn't have a TV back at home. That was a joke. But yeah. This is where my story started to kind of change. I lost my brother Some to suicide. And it shook my world. I had to really rely on my barbering. Me, myself, as his older brother, I felt like it was my fault. I felt like I wasn't there for him in his time of need. And I felt responsible that he had killed himself. And I felt like I had failed him as a brother. So this is where it all started for me. Turning my pain into passion is where I found my purpose, and this is my story. So this is a photo of my brother Some and John Whenui as well. So John Whenui, who taught me how to cut hair, he was killed in a car crash. And throughout my barber journey, I wanted to honor them. So I opened up a small barber shop in our community, Flaxmere. We call it Flex America. We call it Flex America because there's a lot of gangs there. The same environment that you would experience if you were to go through the hood. So Flaxmere is in the east side of the North Island in a region called Hawke's Bay. Small town in Hastings. So yeah. So this is me and my 2 cousins. Sonny just got deported from Australia, so he was doing haircuts in prison, and then I heard he just got back into Flaxmere, so I asked him if he wanted a job. So he came, and then Morgan as well. He was going through a lot of his own trials, losing Some because they were very close. So this is where my barber journey began. So, yep, not too flash. It was just a few chairs with a few mismatching mirrors, and yeah, that's where it starts for us. And this is where we started getting our community come together because it was something very positive. When something positive does happen in an environment like Flaxmere, everyone wants to be a part of it. So just in the bottom right corner, that's my mum cleaning the reception table. So this reception table was given to us, donated to us by the Mongol mob. One of my good friends, JJ, Triple J, who's now passed away, he pulled up with a trailer, delivered this reception table, and he said it was our old pub table. It was our old party table. So there's a lot of memories in this table. So I appreciated him. So yeah, and this is our family coming together to build our barbershop. And I named our barbershop after my brother Some, who committed suicide. So we called it Some's Touch Barbers. My connection to urban culture, hip hop, was very, very similar to Matt and our sister who shared before. In my dark times, I often found healing through music, and of course Tupac is a big one. The influence in my naming my shop Some's Touch was, everyone remember the song from DRS, Gangsta Lean? Gangsta Lean? Okay. At the end, where he gives the small shout outs at the end, I was trying to find a name to name our shop. And as I listened to that song, while I was grieving, I listened to it a few times. At the end, he says, Tommy from Master's Touch. So when I heard Master's Touch, it reminded me of when my brother Some used to cut my hair, because I taught Some how to cut as well. And I remembered his touch, and it was just very soft. You know, sometimes you can get some heavy-handed barbers, leaving you with scars, but that's where I got the name from. So I considered my brother Some, you know, a master of everything. And I miss him, and I wanted to honor him by naming the shop after him. So this is my team, my small team, and there's a stigma around suicide, and I call it being painted with the brush, the suicide brush, because they often look at people who do commit suicide as cowards, people running away from their problems, you know, puftas or pussies. And I often heard people, you know, calling my brother Sir-vere, and it pissed me off. So I was determined to return my brother's mana back, give him his story back, give him his life back, because they might have judged him for the last moments of his life where he took his life, but I remember him as my younger brother. So I was determined to give him his story and give him his mana back through this barbershop. Every haircut that I tried to do, I tried to give a little bit of him in the haircut. So yeah, miss you. And yeah, these are my other, taking the boys from Flaxmere out to, you know, different environments. You could tell they're very, very comfortable in their surroundings. But yeah, just took the boys to check out a mall. They've never been to, you know, malls before. Flaxmere is very small, very small. I think our biggest mall is Kmart. For real. Cool, so just like Matt, this is my attempt at doing Tupac. This was a very long time ago. The juice haircut is a staple in the hip hop culture, and I gave it a try. I tried to do easy on the other side, but yeah, it didn't come out too well. But this is the influence that I have. I want to read out a quote from Tupac. And it goes, Tupac once said, "Before you ask why someone hates you, ask yourself why you even give a fuck." Excuse my language, sorry, but that's what it means to me. He helped me through a lot of dark times, especially through his music and his lyrics. And this is where it led me to reaching out to Matt Brown. And I honor this man so much. I thought I was the only one doing hair art in Flaxmere. I thought I was special. And then when I was cutting, young Sid came into town. And when I was cutting Sid, young Sid goes, "Bro, have you heard of a guy from My Father's Barber?" And my heart broke because I thought I was the man, you know. I thought I was the only one doing hair art. And he showed me this, and I'm like, damn, he is the man. But then I seen Matt's story. I looked up the YouTube channel, seen his story, and he was sharing, you know, his mama, just like how he did just earlier. And to me, as a Samoan kid, that I connected with that, because in the Samoan culture, you're not allowed to talk about stuff like that. We have to sweep that stuff under the rug. So I was wondering how Matt got the power to just share so effortlessly, but with so much strength. So I knew I had to reach out to Matt and be like, "Bro, like, how do you do it? I want the same powers that you have." So yep, he sent me a beautiful message back. And as soon as I seen this, I was on the flight. I was on a flight down here to Christchurch to come to his tutorial. And then, yeah, one thing led to the other, and I ended up joining the My Father's Barber team. So why I want to acknowledge My Father's Barber, especially Matt and Sarah, is because without them, without Christchurch, without Ōtautahi, there wouldn't, my story wouldn't be complete. The reason why I say that is I asked him if I could come and learn from him the skills, but really I really came down here to heal, because I wasn't used to having these hard conversations like he does. And I can now say that I'm a product of his work. So yeah, shout out to Luke in the skinny days. So yeah, we had fun here. There's Phil and Jerome as well. I never really had that, because being a shop owner, you often have to be the leader. And I had cousins who were like, you know, little gangsters. And man, it was so hard to be a leader. But when I came to My Father's Barber, I just had so much fun. You know, meeting people like Tommy. It's just cool. Yeah, beautiful shop. So it's a different culture, meeting the beautiful people from Ōtautahi. I was just used to cutting, like, you know, people from Flaxmere, like gangsters. And sometimes people, I remember one guy that came in our shop in Flaxmere, and he didn't have any money. And he said, "Bro, can I get a cut?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sweet." And he's like, "Is it all good if I get a haircut for some fish?" So yeah, that's the dynamics down in the community. So yeah, it was like that. But when I came to Christchurch, I was now cutting lawyers, doctors, and I didn't know how to talk to them. But through my time here in Christchurch and learning under Matt's guidance and along with the other brothers like Luke and Phil, I was able to grow as a person as well. Yes, so this is the connection to the photo that Matt shared earlier. There's a quote from Loaded Deluxe. Who here watches URL smack battles? My man up there, let's go. So Loaded Deluxe, one of my favorite quotes, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And that really resonated with me. And I'm going to share the story. So obviously Darren Lyons is the man, Tupac's barber. So when I saw the opportunity that Matt had brought to New Zealand, to our shores, to come to one of these tutorials, to watch the man in action, I knew I had to be there. I was obviously running late. I still haven't changed. So I drove from Hastings to Tauranga where it was, and I came 10 minutes late. And to me, that was disrespectful because I went to the wrong address. So I got there and I knew straight away, oh my gosh, I've just disrespected the man who, cut Tupac and Biggie. I'm more of a Tupac fan. I'll be honest, I didn't really listen to Biggie. Yeah, we take it to another level in Flex. We're loyal to Tupac. So yeah, anyways, I knew I messed up and I set a bad impression by turning up late to the man's tutorial. So I just grabbed out my book and I just started writing notes. I was just going hard writing notes. Anything he was saying, I was like, started writing notes, right? He had already had a client model for the beard. And then I noticed him starting to include me in his speeches. He was like, yo, man, write this down. I'm like, yeah. Started writing it down. And then he came back and he started just connecting with me in this tutorial. And I'm the guy that rocked up late, right? And he goes, okay, my man right here, I'm going to use you. So he used me to be a model for his beard. But he already had a model. So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity. This is another opportunity as well. To be able to share my story and my connection to not only Christchurch, but my connection to our love of hip hop. And yes, making other people look good and feel good is another element through our barbering service of the hip hop culture. Obviously, my brother Some at the top, and I always try and honor him in every way possible. A very handsome boy. And yeah, he committed suicide in 2012, and he had just turned 18. Okay. I went on annual leave when I was at my father's barber and I didn't return. So this is the next chapter, okay? So my biggest issue was my relationships, and especially with women. And I'll be real right here. I'm really, really bad with my relationships. I was too scared to be responsible, and I often just ran away like a little boy. So when I was down here in Christchurch, my girlfriend at the time, we already had 2 kids, 2 boys. So she was raising our boys on her own in Brisbane, because I couldn't get my crap together. And I honor my mana wahine so much because she's helped me through a lot. So yeah, this is her, Jonique Kaiwai Crawford. She hails from Ruatoria in the East Coast, Ngāti Porou. She was raised in Uawa, Tolaga Bay. Yeah, and she's my life. So yeah, that's her. And that's her again. Yeah, so with my wife, like Matt was saying, she's not your rehab. I felt she was my rehab to me. I was very controlling, very jealous, very insecure, always demanding so much of her, and I treated her exactly like my rehab. And it was almost like she was forced to love me. But when I returned from Christchurch, having learned the tools from Matt and Sarah, I am very grateful I felt like I was ready to now take ownership and step into my role as a father. And by doing that, I grew as a person and become received a lot of other opportunities. So I want to honour my wife and her moko kauai, and yeah, honour her tipuna and her ancestors as well. I'm very, very proud Samoan. And I want to also mention something else. Like we often talk about racism between browns and blacks, or blacks and between black and white, but there's a lot of racism between cultures, Māori and Samoan, Tongan and Samoan, and yeah, we need to stop. We need to stop. So yeah, this is my Y, my son Tai Crow in the middle, Josiah on your right, and then Some on your left. My wife chose to name our son Some after my brother who had passed away. So moving back from Christchurch, back up to Flaxmere, she moved back from Brisbane with our boys, and we got married. So yeah. Why isn't that moving? Is that the last one? I just got one last photo to share, and that's it. Oh, okay, that one. Do that one, and then cool. Shuttles. A year ago, so back with my family now, our barbershop was growing very successful. My wife, I see a therapist every 2 weeks as well, sis, so I honour you, so well done. Yeah, what my wife said to me, because I was asking my wife, you need to help me because I had my issues. And I was saying to her, it's your responsibility to help me. And she goes, no, it's not. You need to fix yourself. And that was hard for me to hear. So I checked myself into therapy as well. And she started doing these surveys or asking me these questions. And it showed, where my situation was. And the scale, after I had shared all my, my trauma as a child, being sexually abused as well, she looked up at me, and my therapist said, man, your childhood, your trauma is quite severe. And for me, I didn't understand that. I didn't really know that, but to walk with my therapist and go through the sessions, it's really helped me. So I was now in a good place in life with my family, our business. My wife started her own not small, I'll take that back. My wife started her own business. It's called Waiapu Road. And I'm very, very proud of her and her accomplishments as well as a mana wahine. This photo here, I lost my another brother, a year ago in a car crash. My sister was driving, and we almost lost her as well. So that's a thing that I have become very conditioned to, is when good things happen, we always expecting, something bad that's going to happen around the corner. And yeah, so this is a photo of me carrying my other brother, Fili, and yeah, going through some hard times, but then I've relied on my circle, my village, my wife and my kids, and my usos as well, to bring me back to, back on track. Yeah. Just got a quote. The quote goes like this: sometimes in life, when you go through dark phases, you might feel like you've been buried when actually you've been planted. And that really speaks to me, because even though tragedies happen in our lives, we often find someone else to blame, or blame the man upstairs, asking him why. But then it's a time and a moment to reflect on yourself and be able to find what you're truly, truly grateful for. And every day I wake up, and I'm grateful to wake up. I'm grateful for opportunities to be able to share my story, and I'm grateful for you for listening as well. One last photo, so one more photo, and apologies for, got one more photo to share, and I just want to. And it's a reminder, and no matter how successful you are, how happy you are, how good things are going, there's a quote that Bob Marley said the night he got shot, and he said, in that movie, Will Smith's movie, it really sticks out to me, and it was saying, why do you keep on going? What keeps you, what's your drive? Why did you go out and perform the next night? Because obviously a gunman had broken into Bob Marley's house and shot him, but Bob Marley still turned up the next night to perform to the crowd. And Bob Marley said, if the devil, or the, don't quote me on the wording, but it's went a little something like this, if the devil doesn't take a day off, why should I? So why should we? We're always facing these challenges in life, and all these things that might flip our world upside down. But what Bob Marley says, and how that sticks to me, is, there's an opportunity to serve. And for him, having almost died the night before, and saying something like that, if the devil doesn't take a day off, then why should we? And that's a responsibility that I've found within myself through my journey. One last quote before I acknowledge my brother in the photo here. Okay, so this is the last quote. I love quotes, if you didn't already know. I love quotes. God pulled you out of the pit so you can go back in and get more people out. So when you are able, or when you have been blessed with opportunity, with wealth, with success, that's when you have the responsibility to turn around and help your other friends up. One thing I do have struggles with in our Samoan culture, I'll speak from my Samoan lens because I'm Samoan, is I often feel like we're like crabs in a bucket. When a crab tries to get out of the bucket, the rest of the crabs at the bottom try and pull him back down. So let's just get rid of the mentality, that tall poppy syndrome, and make this world a better place. I want to honor my brother here, Darcy Strickland. Yesterday at just after midnight, or last 2 nights, or a night ago, Darcy was murdered in our community in Flaxmere. So I want to honor my bro here, and he was a good man, but that's a reality check in our community where, no matter how good you have it, or all the good things that happen in your community, the devil still tries to remind us, and tries to bring us down. And so I want to honor my brother Darcy Strickland, and taken too soon. But thank you so much for this opportunity. Last quote. Thank you, Tommy, for for trying to organize my slideshow. But last quote for me is, my favorite quote is, don't learn to fly, then turn around and walk home. So what that says to me is, you can always do better. If you're successful and get to this point, you can always go to the next level. And my children, my kids are what recharge my batteries, and I try and live every day in honor of our loved ones, especially those who have lost, who are dear to me, especially my 2 brothers and my grandma. So Whawhataite Lava, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you Hip Hop Summit Christchurch. Much love.
Thank you very much, Peleti, for sharing your story, your journey. That actually concludes the Hair Art talks for this morning. I do want to make a big shout out to Matt Brown, Ronda, Shaskey, and Peleti Oli for joining us and sharing what your experiences. And thank you guys for hanging around. Tough crowd. we're going to have a break now. There's going to be some showcases out in the courtyard. There's some food, there's some drinks, there's all kinds of bits and pieces happening out there. So hang around, feel free to say what's up to everybody. And we will be back here at 2:30 for the Hip Hop Summit panel discussion with a few guests who have traveled here from out of town. So yeah, enjoy, and thank you to our guest speakers again. Whakailawa.